Have you ever thought about opening your own mobile cart or kiosk business? Maybe the facility you manage could establish new revenue by adding coffee, food, or retail services. Cart King International can be the answer to your needs. Cart King is a North American designer and manufacturer of the finest mobile coffee, food, and retail carts and kiosks. Cart King has been working with clients and corporations across North America for 20 years, providing innovative designs, custom manufacturing, and timely delivery. Carts and kiosks are fun, and so are the dozens of designs on our website. Please visit us today at www.cart-king.com or just call us at 1-877-986-7771 and get your sales rolling.
If you find yourself in need of legal representation, it can be a very stressful time in your life. In my career, I have dealt with thousands of lawyers, I've dealt with thousands of law firms, and I can confidently recommend to you Keith M. Davidson at kmdlaw.com. Available 24 hours, 7 days a week. Just log into kmdlaw.com. That's kmdlaw.com. Or you can call toll-free 833-4KMD-LAW. That's 833-4KMD-LAW. Personal injury, wrongful death, STDs, sexual assault, car accidents. They handle it all efficiently and professionally. It doesn't matter how imposing the opposition may be, because the team at kmdlaw.com are battle-tested and fierce. They will not stop until justice prevails. Go to kmdlaw.com or call toll-free 833-4KMD-LAW. If you're in for the fight of your life, stop screwing around and contact KMD Law. PureSoapFlakes.com, 218-568-2525. Have you ever heard of Castile Soap? Pure Soap Flake Company handcrafts fine soap bars, laundry powder, and concentrated soap flakes using organic vegetable oils from their northern Minnesota facility. Bathe your body and wash your clothes with pure soap products that are free of fragrance, GMOs, palm oil, sodium lauryl sulfate, and synthetic additives. Keep it clean, folks. Pure Soap Flake Company products are kind to living creatures and sensitive skin, safe for drains and waterways, and work great in high-efficiency washers and top and front-loading machines. They have a little promotion going on. Contact them to order some soap. Mention the Opperman Report. You're going to get a free gift. They're going to send a little extra soap, travel size, soap bars and laundry soap, cleaning soap flakes. I've been using that stuff all day long today. Great stuff. Order today at puresoapflakes.com or give them a call, 218-568-2525, 218-568-2525. Pure Soap Flake Company is a proud member of the Handcrafted Soap and Cosmetic Guild. The Opperman Report is brought to you by Aquadam.net. You can give them a call at 707-764-2119. A flooded home is never easy to deal with. You're left with the mess to clean up, the insurance companies to deal with, and not to mention all the memories, the precious memories that are lost in the flood. You can never replace those. And Aquadam can be a tool in your arsenal to protect your home and property from the floodwaters. The cofferdam is filled with water to control water and is reusable as long as it's taken care of. It can protect your home or business from rising floodwaters like a dam, but without the beavers. It can also be used in construction. If you need an area to be dewatered, an Aquadam can do the job. An Aquadam was used at SeaWorld in Orlando for the Mako roller coaster ride during the coaster's construction by dewatering the work area. An Aquadam is now dewatering the work area at San Antonio SeaWorld for their newest roller coaster ride. An Aquadam has been used in many construction projects all around the U.S. and all around the world. Now give Aquadam a call, 707-764-2119. You can look them up online at aquadam.net. You can find them on Facebook at Aquadam Inc. You call them up, you email them, you tell them Ed Opperman sent you, and they're going to take 10% off the price. Aquadam.net, 707-764-2119.
It's the Opperman Report. Join digital forensic investigator and PI Ed Opperman for an in-depth discussion of conspiracy theories, strategy of New World Order resistance, high-profile court cases in the news, and interviews with expert guests and authors on these topics and more. It's the Opperman Report. And now, here is investigator Ed Opperman.
Okay, welcome to the Opperman Report. I'm your host, Private Investigator Ed Opperman. You can find me at Opperman Investigations in Digital Forensic Consulting, either through my website, emailrevealer.com, or you can email me at oppermaninvestigations@gmail.com. Now, if you like the show and you want to hear more stuff, there's exclusive content over at our website, our members section at oppermanreport.com. We have a member section there with court documents on the cases we cover. There's a bookstore there. You can buy books. oppermanreport.com. But our archives are free entirely free at Spreaker.com. All the shows we do on AM/FM radio, you could find them on Spreaker.com. Just go there, sign up for free. Anytime we put up new content, you get an email notification. It's a fun chat room in there with a lot of cool people. And you can go back years later and add comments back and forth. But also, too, every Friday night at 10 p.m., I do an exclusive show there on Spreaker where I just do live content, a solo show without doing interviews. Now, our guest today, we just got a email from his publicist the other day, and the book is called Understanding the War Industry. It's Christian Sorensen, and all the descriptions of this book is it's a heavily well-researched book, and you can find him at his website, ibpoffices.com. Mr. Sorensen, are you there?
Sir, good to talk to you.
Yes, very nice. Now, tell us about yourself. Before we get into your book, Understanding the War Industry, who is Christian Sorensen?
Well, I am a researcher and a military veteran. I got out of the Air Force around, would have been summer of 2011, and sort of as the part of the educational process began to look at the Pentagon's publicly available contracts. And anybody can do this. It's available on the Pentagon's website at, they change the links often, but right now it's at defense.gov/newsroom/contracts. And so I started basically trying to understand who's profiting from war and where are the big industry locations and what are the big names and what are the big ticket items and where's all our money going. As you know, close to 2/3 of every discretionary tax dollar goes to war and preparation for war. So I started looking at these contracts in 2013, and here we are today. And around summer of 2018, I had enough material to put into a book, and that's what we have from Clarity Press called Understanding the War Industry.
Now, what is it that sparked your interest in this? Was this due to your military service or just the...
Yeah, I would say so. I mean, when I was in, I began to sort of read and educate myself, and it was increasingly harder to justify the enormous Pentagon budgets, and I saw that from the inside. And so it was, it was part of a reconciliation process. Veterans and people who join the service do for a variety of ways, and some people double down on the propaganda, and some people react differently. So I think I reacted differently, and I sort of tried to understand the nature of the beast and really start to think critically about why we're always at war and how easy it is to convince us to go to war and stay at war. And so I just tried to basically draw upon not just the Pentagon's public contracts, but the incredible research of many independent and even a few corporate media journalists like William Arkin, Dana Priest, Tim Sharrock, based in Washington, D.C., does tremendous work, particularly on the intelligence side of things. And that's sort of, it was part educational, part healing and moving on.
And what was your role and your rank, and which branch of service did you serve?
Oh, I was as low as you can get. After 4 years, I was E4, which is in the Air Force. It was, I believe, senior airman was the name of the rank. And so I didn't have any, I didn't reach a high rank, and I didn't have any effect on policy or any decisions at all. But I was able to sort of, nobody pays much attention to the low ranks, and that's good and bad, and I understand the need for hierarchy within a military organization. But for a guy like me who was trying to understand things, big picture, and educating myself while I was in, it provided a unique view from the ground. So I would come into say the squadron one day, and there'd be just a wall full of brand new plasma flat screen TVs. And I'd ask around, and, it soon became clear that, there's something in the military called, they go by different names, but at the time it was called fallout money. And the basic premise is if you don't, as an organization, any unit of any size in the military, if you don't use your funding from one year, you're likely to get your budget cut back the next year. So the squadron just bought all these flat screen TVs for no reason, and this is the tax dollar at work. And this applies, across the board to all branches of the military and all sorts of goods and services purchased from the U.S. war industry.
It's fascinating. You said you never made it past E4. Here you are, a clearly brilliant guy, very intelligent man, and no one noticed. No one noticed that and said, "Hey, let's put this guy to work doing some little."
No. I mean, it's not. No, I mean, I appreciate the compliment, but it's. It was. They dangle many things in front of you in order to re-enlist. So after 4 years, they said, if you stay in, you can get sergeant. If you stay in, you can have this and that. And while it was tempting, I thought. I saw many well-meaning people on the inside who tried to change the beast from the inside, and you just can't. It's so enormous. It's so enormous. So, and I was still trying to understand things when I was in. I'm by no means an expert now, and in fact, I hate the term expert. I think that's part of the problems within the Beltway and all the think tanks. They're all experts, but they're all also complicit. But so yeah, I have no expertise in anything aside from having been in the service, and that sort of grounds my understanding of things in reality. Whereas if any civilian were to try to study contracts, as I have for the last going on 7 or 8 years now, they would have no military background to ground them, and they'd be sort of behind the ball and have to draw on, unfortunately, what most people draw on when trying to understand the war industry and the larger military-industrial-congressional complex, and that is Hollywood's portrayal of it. And that's more part of the problem than the reality. So I feel like, aside from my hard work at understanding these contracts and instilling them and all that, just the status as a veteran, for better or for worse, is sort of a grounding force than anything else.
And just out of curiosity, that anecdotal story you told about the flat screen TVs,
sure.
Where did those TVs wind up? Where did they wind up?
Oh, so it's even worse. The more you know. So in the squadron at the time, they had these dry erase boards, and that would sort of be used for scheduling in various offices. And you'd use it like any other dry erase board. You're coordinating PT, physical training, or anything else. You'd write and you'd erase, and they'd be done with it. And it was a low-cost and very, very effective way of doing things. And then, so instead, they used these flat-screen TVs to put up a PowerPoint presentation that would slide across automatically every 10 seconds. Change the slide and convey the exact same information that had just been done with $1.50 in Sharpies. And so it's just it's pretty bad. But it gets much worse when that's not even reflected in the daily contract now.
Well, then give us an idea, because we have the largest military budget on the planet. It's equal to the next top 10 nations, and half of those are on our side anyway. Right. Does any of this money get down to the rank and file for better comfort and services, or food, or
That's a great
medical attention?
That's a great question. The short answer is no. So. It's about, I think at last count, 3/5 of the military budget goes directly to these war corporations. These giant corporate entities that are benefiting most from the overall war budget. And the next biggest cost is, obviously the troops, the soldiers, sailor, airmen, Marines, but they. The greatest cost for them, I believe, is the health care. And the military runs on the TRICARE healthcare system. And, so, the troops are taken care for to an extent. However, the greatest, beneficiary of the overall war budget is the war corporations. And of the overall budget, the war budget takes up, as we talked about a little bit earlier, probably, I think it's close to 2/3 of the overall discretionary budget. So, every dollar that goes towards war or preparation for war could be used, in theory, towards education, infrastructure, housing and urban development, labor, any of the other departments. And so when there are only X dollars to go around, and most of those, or a good chunk of those, are going to war and preparation for war, it really, really costs everything else.
And who are these specifically? Who are these war corporations that are getting all this money?
Sure. So probably the most famous is Lockheed Martin. The top five are Lockheed Martin, Raytheon Technologies, General Dynamics, Northrop Grumman. And, the Raytheon Technologies just underwent a merger. It used to be United Technologies, but now United Technologies merged with Raytheon to create Raytheon Technologies, and they're just an enormous one. They now rival Lockheed Martin in the number one and number two positions, and in a functioning democracy that actually busted trusts and worked to regulate corporate greed. The recent Raytheon and United Technologies merger probably wouldn't have gone ahead. I mean, they're enormous now. And United Technologies is probably most famous for its Pratt & Whitney brand, which makes aircraft engines for civilian and military use, but mostly military use. And they make the F-35 engine. And the F-35 Joint Strike Fighter is the most expensive weapon system ever developed in human history. And it's now scheduled to run over the course of its lifetime $1.2 to $1.5 trillion, tax dollars, just right out there. So, you have Lockheed Martin, Boeing, Raytheon Technologies, General Dynamics, and Northrop Grumman in the top five, and they suck up most of the dollars from the war budget that go to corporations. And then, rounding out the top 10, I would put others like L3 Harris, Textron, Huntington Ingalls, SAIC, and AECOM. Now, we can get into what these various corporations do, but all of them have very diversified operations, diversified in terms of geographic location across the United States, and diversified in terms of what they actually produce. So you have something like, let's say, General Dynamics, and it does pretty much everything. It sells every type of good or service imaginable to the Pentagon, aside from combat aircraft. Fighter aircraft are only produced by two corporations, Lockheed Martin and Boeing, right now. And that's partially a result of the mergers and acquisitions that have taken place over time. But General Dynamics, as an example, does everything else. I mean, it makes everything from small bullets to large caliber ordnance. It has a very, very lucrative information technology division based in Fairfax, Virginia. All of the war corporations have offices in Northeast Virginia because it's so close to the nation's capital. And we can get in later into sort of the spread of these corporations across the U.S. and where they're focused and how they function in that regard. But Northeast Virginia is worth mentioning from the outset because of its proximity to government and influence to government. But yeah, General Dynamics does a lot of other things. It owns the Gulfstream brand aircraft, which is used for VIP transport in the military. It's used for signals intelligence operations. They pack it basically with a lot of antennae and gizmos, and then they fly it near a battle space and observe that way. So, that's sort of a basic rundown. And I mentioned AECOM at the 10 spot, and I want to just elaborate that on that very briefly, because AECOM is not a traditional corporation that targets the Pentagon or military spending in general. It's one of these giant project management and engineering firms. And one of the trends that I've seen in recent years is these firms getting closer and closer to the military budget and drawing more and more from the military budget. So you might have a giant project management or engineering firm like AECOM, or Jacobs is another one. And they're traditionally building, let's say dams or working on giant, municipality engineering projects. But now they're increasingly becoming war corporations, and they're selling anything from, what the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers used to do, which is now entirely corporatized, or some of them even go so far as selling software that is used to better dominate the battle space. So I mentioned AECOM off at the bat because what we consider a traditional war corporation is now quite broad, and that has repercussions not just for the nature of war, but for the the relative functioning of our democracy, so to speak.
I noticed, too, that in recent years, they've come up with this. They've privatized, like, meal services and communications where soldiers want to call home.
Oh, sure.
It's all been privatized. What other areas like that maybe have slipped through the cracks that I haven't noticed? Are they making profit now off of instead of just a basic service that you'd have in the military?
Great question. So, short answer is everything. Everything in the military has been corporatized to an extent. And I would say that the only job left that really hasn't is your ground infantry. And there's two things I want to say about that. One is they still do have a corporatized version of infantry, and that is, your Blackwater, which is now rebranded under a different name. I think it's Academy now. And it was, sort of the same corporations that purchased the likes of Triple Canopy and all those other ones. So they do have sort of a corporatized infantry in the form of private mercenaries. But the reason I think that traditional infantry have not been corporatized quite yet is because they're more profitable as users, on-the-ground users, basically vessels of goods and services from the war industry, than they would be profitable if they were outright corporatized to that extent. So we can look at it from the corporate boardroom point of view. The average grunt, the average soldier, sailor, airman, or marine is a vessel for goods and services from the war industry. So whether that's communication gear or driving the actual armored vehicle which is produced by the war industry or anything like that. But you mentioned your question. The essence of it is what has been corporatized, and my short answer is everything. And this brings me to the profitable nature of war. There are many sectors of profitable war, and you alluded to what is now called Base Operations Support Services, or BOSS.
Right.
And that's everything that basically is done to run a military installation, whether that's at home or overseas. So BOSS is basically, it can be anything from taking out the trash to groundskeeping to, light vehicle maintenance to sometimes security. Base security is wrapped up in BOSS. So there's that, and you see this at bases across the United States, across the services within the United States, and you increasingly see it overseas. So one of the really profitable things that has, profitable trends that has happened since 9/11 in our endless wars is the corporatization of the U.S. bases overseas. So you'll have bases, for example, within Central Command. So Central Command stretches from Egypt through basically all the way to Pakistan. And it stretches from the south, from Yemen, all the way to basically the top of Iraq and the top of Syria, and the top of Afghanistan towards the northeast. And so within Central Command, there are two types of bases you'll come across. You'll come across the bases that are directly within the war zones, bases within the nations where the U.S. is actively at war. So Afghanistan, you'll have a few in Pakistan, though those typically don't show up within the public contracts that I look at. And you'll have bases in Iraq and Syria. But the more profitable bases are the ones within allied countries, particularly the kleptocracies that run Kuwait, Bahrain, Qatar, Saudi Arabia, the UAE, Oman. The bases there are huge. They're sprawling. And, one corporation can guzzle up, 8 figures, 9 figures in tax dollars in a year just by running any number of these bases. And so that's where some of the real profit lies. And, through those bases, corporate America is able to route, in addition to, and aside from base operation support services, a variety of goods and services, aircraft, anything, snooping technology, anything. And, no, sorry, go ahead.
Well, then let me ask you this, because, we got to get into this makes some sense, okay? Mm-hmm. Let's say I'm some kind of conservative Republican, and I want to trim down the budget. I'm always talking about the deficit, right? Constantly ad nauseum, right?
Right.
and I see, I'm not stupid. I can see, wait, what's going on here? $3 trillion going over there. It's been wasted. It's being eaten up by these crooks over there. This corporation stealing all this money. That even in my own personal life, my kids could be going to a better school. I could have a better hospital right around the corner if I catch a heart attack. What's going on? Why don't they stand up and put a stop to this?
So, long story short on that one, the corporations have captured the government, and they've done it in a variety of ways. If you're a conservative, in name politician, and you are in the Senate or the House, you are captured by corporate interests before you even step foot on Capitol Hill, and they do this in a few ways. First and foremost, there is campaign finance, which is fairly well known. It's basically the process by, if you and I are running for, a congressional district in any town, somewhere in Texas, for example, the war corporations fund your campaign and they fund my campaign. And so whoever gets in the office, we owe the war corporation. And the war corporation, for better or for worse, actually owns us. We are indebted to them. They have funded our campaign, and in the nature of U.S. politics, as soon as we get into office, we have to start funding for campaign for the next one, 2 years later when we're running again. And so there is campaign finance, and that's a huge portion. But an undisclosed or less analyzed portion, which I try to get into a little bit in my book, is how the war corporations spread manufacturing facilities and plants and quote-unquote jobs across congressional districts in a very strategic way. So the most well-known example is the F-35, and the supply chain of which is spread across 48 states, and even many U.S. allies or regimes overseas produce goods and services that end up going into the F-35. So what Lockheed Martin, the prime contractor on the F-35, can then do is to say to the person in the House or the person in the Senate, look at all these jobs we provide. Now, the jobs are very, they're always hyped. They're always, built up. There's not always a justification for the job. And in fact, the numbers are always inflated. That's the word I was looking for. They're always inflated, and there's no accountability because the congressperson only wants to be able to cite the job numbers because it's a game. There's no, I like to say that the military-industrial-congressional complex is insulated, and it is. It's very insulated from the public. We have no direct say over the military. We have no direct say over the industry, but we should have a direct say over Congress. But we don't, because they're captured before they even step foot on Capitol Hill. And part of the jobs game is part of that. And then once they step foot on Capitol Hill, the lobbyists swarm. So any democracy that we think we're entitled to is thrown by the wayside. And if you'll permit me, I can go into jobs a little in greater detail right now. The industry hypes the jobs figures. Congress cites the jobs figures. Now, those jobs can be direct jobs, but they're usually menial jobs or low wage and typically lack, robust union rights. And some jobs pay well, but the ones that pay well, and there are more than a few within the war industry, usually require advanced degrees, which the majority of people do not have. So industry also includes in its job tallies what's known as indirect jobs. So
I live in Long Island.
One of these war corporations will say, hey, we have a facility, a plant in, say, Lima, Ohio. And they'll say this plant supports 5,000 jobs. What they don't tell you is that they're including in their job tallies indirect jobs, which may include, for example, the waitress at the diner who had to be hired in order to keep up with the new clientele from the missile plant or from the land vehicle plant. And they also include the ride-hailing app driver who's making less than minimum wage, ferrying the mid-level executive from, home to the pub or gym to the office or whatever. So they fudge the job numbers in that way. And they also include sometimes jobs that have already been, that they're already in existence. So they'll say, hey, we support 6,000 jobs in this county or in this state. What they're not saying is that many of the jobs are already filled. Maybe it's a corporation that is already in existence and it's somewhere down the supply chain and it's producing a wire that the war corporation farther up the supply chain happens to be using. So they'll fudge the jobs left and right. And so it's a numbers game, and there's no accountability. And what goes unsaid is that jobs are lost when federal money is put into endless war. I mean, these are starved governmental services that could be profiting. Profiting is not the right word. Could be funded fully, whether it's education or infrastructure or anything. And unlike other industries, the war industry produces a lot of stuff that we can't even use. It's not even like they're producing valuable things. They're producing, at worst, weapons of death, and at best, things you can't eat, you can't consume, you can't play with. The average person has no use for a submarine, has no use for a fighter aircraft. These are not things that even benefit the greater good. So I'd say just about the jobs in conclusion, industry fibs about the job. Congress is in on it. This hurts the public, and it builds, endless products that, Joe Schmo and Jane Schmo can't use. So.
Oh boy, Chris, we got to take a commercial break. You're not a fun guest, my friend. Christian Sorensen, okay, but maybe not a fun topic. It's very overwhelming and depressing.
Yeah.
But the book is called Understanding the War Industry, and it's an important topic because we got this big giant leech stuck to our neck, sucking the life out of this country.
Correct.
And like he says, we could be using this money for just basic stuff, better schools, better hospitals, better education, sports teams, But not only that, too, but this closes down creativity and innovation because the richest companies, the most supported companies, like you just said, are making stuff we can't even use. And really, are they working? We're still fighting all over the world. I guess we have to perpetually keep that going. But we'll be back with more of Christian Sorensen. The book is called Understanding the War Industry, and his website is ibpoffices.com. We'll be right back after these messages. And now a word from our sponsors. If you find yourself in need of legal representation, it can be a very stressful time in your life. In my career, I have dealt with thousands of lawyers, I've dealt with thousands of law firms, and I can confidently recommend to you Keith M. Davidson at kmdlaw.com. Available 24 hours, 7 days a week. Just log into kmdlaw.com. That's kmdlaw.com. Or you can call toll-free 833-4KMD-LAW. That's 833-4KMD-LAW. Personal injury, wrongful death, STDs, sexual assault, car accidents. They handle it all efficiently and professionally. It doesn't matter how imposing the opposition may be, because the team at kmdlaw.com are battle-tested and fierce. They will not stop until justice prevails. Go to kmdlaw.com or call toll-free 833-4KMD-LAW. If you're in for the fight of your life, stop screwing around and contact KMD Law.
Are you ready to change your life, but don't know how to start? Is your stress and worries keeping you awake at night? Have you been battling grief, anxiety, or depression all alone? Have you lost touch with your own sense of being or spirituality? Soul Free Therapies offers professional and affordable live video streaming counseling and coaching services from the comfort of your own home. Sessions offered in English, Spanish, and Portuguese. Go to our website at www.soul-free.com and book your first session today.
The Opperman Report is brought to you by Aquadam.net. You can give them a call at 707-764-2119. A flooded home is never easy to deal with. You're left with the mess to clean up, the insurance companies to deal with, and not to mention all the memories, the precious memories that are lost in the flood. You can never replace those. And Aquadam can be a tool in your arsenal to protect your home and property from the floodwaters. The cofferdam is filled with water to control water and is reusable as long as it's taken care of. It can protect your home or business from rising floodwaters like a dam, but without the beavers. It can also be used in construction. If you need an area to be dewatered, an aquadam can do the job. An aquadam was used at SeaWorld in Orlando for the Mako roller coaster ride during the coaster's construction by dewatering the work area. An aquadam is now dewatering the work area at San Antonio SeaWorld for their newest roller coaster ride. An aquadam has been used in many construction projects all around the U.S. and all around the world. Now give Aquadam a call, 707-764-2119. You can look them up online at aquadam.net. You can find them on Facebook at Aquadam Inc. You call them up, you email them, you tell them Ed Opperman sent you, and they're going to take 10% off the price. Aquadam.net, 707-764-2119. PureSoapFlakes.com, 218-568-2525. Have you ever heard of Castile Soap? Pure Soap Flake Company handcrafts fine soap bars, laundry powder, and concentrated soap flakes using organic vegetable oils from their northern Minnesota facility. Bathe your body and wash your clothes with Pure Soap products that are free of fragrance, GMOs, palm oil, sodium lauryl sulfate, and synthetic additives. Keep it clean, folks. Pure Soap Flake Company products are kind to living creatures and sensitive skin, safe for drains and waterways, and work great in high-efficiency washers and top and front-loading machines. They have a little promotion going on. Contact them to order some soap. Mention the Opperman Report. You're going to get a free gift. They're going to send a little extra soap, travel size, soap bars and laundry soap, cleaning soap flakes. I've been using that stuff all day long today. Great stuff. Order today at puresoapflakes.com or give them a call, 218-568-2525, 218-568-2525. Pure Soap Flake Company is a proud member of the Handcrafted Soap and Cosmetic Guild.
It's the Opperman Report. And now, here is investigator Ed Opperman.
Okay, welcome back to the Opperman Report. I'm your host, Private Investigator Ed Opperman. We have with us today Christian Sorensen, and the book is called Understanding the War Industry. And you can find Christian Sorensen's website at ippoffices.com. And Christian, you're doing a great job of explaining this and helping us to understand this war industry. But one thing I don't understand.
Sure.
You say to us, Christian, that, hey, we don't need that submarine. The American people don't need that submarine, right? But isn't that submarine the one thing standing between our freedom and communist dictatorship oppression, and that the North Koreans would be rolling their tanks down Florida over here, down Bradenton, Florida streets, if we didn't have that submarine?
So, great question. Great question. And I get that a lot. What we need to understand is that the war industry itself, these giant corporations, create, and in many ways, when they don't create, hype up that very threat, or the perception of the threat that that they then use to justify, hey, we need these submarines. You know, Russia, China, Iran, North Korea. Hey, we need these goods and services that we're selling. Why? Because or before, the fall of the Berlin Wall, because of communism. And they do this in a couple ways. The two main ways are through corporate media and through think tanks. Now, if you look at the most effective, and I don't say this in a good way, but the most effective think tanks within the Beltway, within Washington, D.C., and the greater D.C. area, they are all funded by the war industry, by these giant corporations. And it's one of the many ways in which war corporations cooperate. They cooperate in many ways, and one of them is funding these think tanks. They cooperate through lobbying. They cooperate through providing goods and services for one another's platforms. So you and I would see a submarine. We'd see an aircraft. We'd see an aircraft carrier. And we'd say, oh, those are just discrete, different items that are sold. But what the war industry sees are platforms upon which and through which they can sell more goods and services. So, one of the examples I use more often than not is the General Atomics. General Atomics is based in Poway, California, in Southern California. And there's a tangent, but it's an important tangent. It's about cooperation. General Atomics sells the MQ-9 Reaper drone. So if there's a drone strike conducted by either CIA or JSOC, Joint Special Operations Command, anywhere in the world, it's usually done via General Atomics MQ-9 Reaper. Now, it's not just the General Atomics drone. What you have is, General Atomics makes the drone, but you'll have a different corporation making the engine. Perhaps it's Pratt & Whitney, which belongs to Raytheon Technologies. Perhaps it's Honeywell, which is another engine maker. Rolls-Royce, actually based in the UK, which is intimately tied in with the U.S. war industry, makes engines as well. You'll have Raytheon making the eyes of the drone, which are basically the electro-optical thread, which goes on the bottom of the drone and sees the battlefield or what happens to be maybe civilians or a civilian neighborhood below. You'll have Lockheed Martin, Boeing, and Raytheon making the ordnance, the bombs and the missiles that are fired. You'll have Northrop Grumman making the radar. So the cooperation is manifold, and it's diverse across the war industry. And so, running back to the think tanks, you'll have donations to these think tanks, funding, provided to these think tanks by these war corporations. And what think tanks do, they're not objective. The goal of a think tank, whether it takes money from one industry or another, the goal is to put out information that aligns with the profit motive of the donors, of those who fund the think tanks. And that's one of the reasons why, if you look at some of these DC think tanks, you see, in addition to the war industry funding them, you'll see Gulf kleptocracies. So you'll see United Arab Emirates or Saudi Arabia funding the think tank alongside with the U.S. industry, and that's because they're basically all part of the same game. I mean, $100,000 here, $100,000 there, that's nothing to a Gulf kleptocracy, whether it's the UAE or Saudi Arabia or Bahrain or Qatar or any of those. And so cooperation is very important. And then the other way is through corporate media, how they influence the narrative and how they build and fear and hype, the next boogeyman or the next enemy of the day. And corporate media, they do it in a few different ways. One of the main ways is by just buying airtime for their ads on corporate media. So there's a great comedian named Jim Dore, and he pointed this out a couple years ago on his show. And he basically said, look, you have General Dynamics or Boeing buying advertising space on, the Sunday morning talk shows where they talk politics and they talk U.S. foreign policy to the extent that war is even ever brought up on corporate media. That's where it usually happens. Now, why would Boeing, Defense, Space, and Security, or General Dynamics, which makes, submarines and land vehicles and a variety of other things, buy these ads on media, on corporate media? And it's because you as a host of one of these Sunday morning talk shows are not allowed to go against your advertisers. That's one of the reasons why corporate media is so pernicious and so harmful. And one of the reasons why shows like yours and other independent media are so important, because you think critically and you don't accept advertising from a giant war corporation that is advertising submarines and aircraft carriers to the general public. I mean, there's no rational reason. But General Dynamics is not selling to the average person, yet they are buying advertising space on corporate media, and that's precisely designed to promote omissions and to craft the narrative so that you can't talk about the elephant in the room. And so that's one of the ways.
The question, by the way, too, when next time, if you could just speak a little closer into the mic.
Sure.
You're breaking up a little tiny bit there.
Sure.
But the thing is, okay, now, the average person can accept that. Yeah, listen, these corporations are all a bunch of crooks.
Sure.
And these congressmen and senators, man, oh my God, they're the sleaziest people on the face of the earth.
Right.
Of course, they're getting paid off. They're all the media, the libtard media. Of course, they're on the tube. Okay.
Yeah.
But Mr. Sorensen, wait a second, man. Surely, if what you're saying is true.
Right.
What about the admirals and the generals?
Right.
We see them there. They're saluting the flag, and they got the deep voice, and they're patriotic.
Sure.
Certainly, they're not going to go along with this.
You're a good man, Ed. You're a good man. So, all right, that's such a perfect question. So let's look at the military side of the military-industrial-congressional triangle. Now, the military side of the MIC is, I want to be very clear about this, it is not the average soldier, sailor, airman, or marine. It's not the E4, it's not the E5, it's not your sergeant, it's not, the grunts on the ground. They have no role within the MIC. It is, however, the people in the Pentagon. Now, the people in the Pentagon can be divided into two categories. They can be divided into the high-ranking admirals and generals, to which you just alluded, and the high-ranking civilians who run the major offices within the Pentagon. Now, the major offices, are Undersecretary of Defense for Policy or Undersecretary of Defense for Acquisition and Sustainment or something like that. There are dozens of these positions. Now, the key is the high-ranking generals and admirals know the game. They know what they're doing. They are about to retire. Now, back in the day, let's say maybe pre-Dwight David Eisenhower day, the generals and admirals, when they retire, they'd go and play golf. They'd spend time with their families. They would take their hefty stipend, their retirement stipend, and they would go off into the sunset. Today, the generals and admirals do no such thing. They, with increasing regularity, doff their military uniform, wait the cool-off period, which is around 5 months or 6 months, and then they show up within the very war corporations that have surrounded and infested the greater D.C. area. And, from northern Virginia through Washington, D.C., up to Baltimore. That corridor is where the corporate headquarters of most of these major war corporations are. And the ones that aren't headquartered there have, multiple offices there. So the generals and admirals go to these corporate headquarters, and they can do anything there. They could be, some of them become lobbyists. Some of them become lobbyists for the and are pushing weapons into the office they just left, and so they're received with deferential status. And you'll see, I believe even Bloomberg News reported this recently. Whenever a war corporation hires a former 3- or 4-star general or admiral to their board or to a high-ranking position within the corporation, the stock price gets a huge bump. And that's because investors know. Wall Street knows. They're hired not for smiles. They're hired for their knowledge. They leverage their knowledge into corporate profit. And you see this across the board. You see one of the recent warrior monks, as corporate media calls him. He's a warrior monk. His name is James Mattis, right? He used to be a 4-star general in the Marines. Now, he left that position. He retired. He didn't go off into the sunset. He went right across the bay, went to General Dynamics. And he sat on the board of General Dynamics until he was called, he got the nod to go be, as a civilian, the Secretary of Defense, Secretary of War. So he goes right back into the Pentagon, and he does that for, a year or two. And then when he's done with that, where does he go? He goes right back into the board of General Dynamics. And he makes, by the way, in the interim, when he was on the board the first time, it's public knowledge that he made over $1 million. These are not principled people. Another example is a man named Dunford. I believe he was also a Marine, also a 4-star. He was recently picked up and went right to the board of Lockheed Martin. And so that's to answer your question about the high-ranking generals and admirals. I mean, they are not innocent bystanders in this. They know what's up. But I want to also talk about the high-ranking civilians who run the major offices within the Pentagon. Where do they come from? They come from industry itself. So one of the sinister and underreported things that we see, one of the trends, is you'll get a high-ranking, let's say, vice president at a Raytheon or a Lockheed Martin or a Boeing or a Northrop Grumman or a General Dynamics or a CACI or a Leidos or a L3 Harris, one of these, right? They then go and work in one of the various undersecretary positions within the Pentagon. Do a year or two there, maybe 3, maybe 4. There's a woman right now who's in charge of Undersecretary of Defense for Acquisition and Sustainment. She's been there for a while. She came from Textron. Textron is one of the very powerful corporations within the overall war industry. And then once they're done with their stint within the various undersecretary and deputy undersecretary offices, they go back to the war industry. And there, they take all that they just learned on the inside. I mean, you gain an enormous amount of knowledge in there, not just about the way the Pentagon is run, but about the policies that they just enacted while they were on the inside. So it's really a sinister game, and unfortunately, there's no the average Joe Schmo at the voting booth really doesn't have a whole lot of say in this.
Yeah, my daughter just started school up in D.C. college, in political college, and so just driving around, you see a lot of guys that clearly were just recently military, just retired and stuff, and there's even foreign governments. I forget which country it was, but have their military offices. And they have an office there of the Bolivian Air Force, is right there,
Yeah.
So the whole town is swarming with this kind of stuff.
Yeah.
And you see, in the airports, too, you see these foreign generals from foreign countries with these, they look like a doorman with their uniforms.
Oh, yeah.
They got so much
A lot of flair on their uniforms.
Yeah.
And they're like, there's a good chance that these foreign high-ranking officials are there to discuss foreign military systems. One of the things that is a greater portion of many war corporations' profits is selling to allied government regimes around the world. I think Lockheed Martin's was something like 25 to 30% of their profits in one of the most recent fiscal years was from selling to, the likes of not just London and Paris and Canberra and other capitals, but also to Riyadh and Abu Dhabi and all of these. There's really no accounting for human rights or factoring that in when it comes to matters of profit.
Now, Christian, we only have a few minutes left, about 5 minutes left now. So then it would be all these people, we can say they have no morals, they have no scruples, they're making tons of money, They don't care about us. Now, it would be in their interest then to perpetuate these battle skirmishes,
sure.
In costing the lives of American young men and women.
Correct.
And do you have any evidence of that?
So, I would say that the bottom line, the corporate line, and the nature of the beast, and how the overall what we believe to be our government has been captured by that. I would say that from the point of view of a boardroom, they look at, as we discussed before very briefly, they look at the soldier, sailor, airman, and marine as numbers at best, and as vessels through which to route goods and services, at worst. And they look at bases at home and overseas as avenues through which to route goods and services. And they look at the conflict zones as profit-making devices. So, you'll hear a lot of pundits, say, the defense industry can't wait for, the Korean War to flare up again. But I would disagree. I would say that it's far more profitable right now to sustain the status quo, to keep the Cold War going on the Korean Peninsula. Because right now, not only is the U.S. war industry selling to the South Korean government left and right, but they are also selling to the U.S. Armed Forces, which has, I think, around 26,000 soldiers, sailor, airmen, and marine in South Korea right now. And so, if war would flare up, they might lose some of that, some of those numbers. And the balance right now, you have Afghanistan, you have Colombia, you have Iraq, you have Iran looked at as the future. Korea, callous that is there, and it's a stable money making account. You have Libya, destroyed the Libyan government under the Nobel Peace Prize winning Barack Obama. You have Mexico, more of a collaboration between the U.S. But U.S. Arms industry sells deeply in Mexico. You have Palestine. The Israelis they get $4 billion annually free, roughly, in U.S. taxpayer dollars, and that tax dollar goes right back into the U.S. war industry under the recent deal signed by Obama in September, I think it was 2016. The Israelis have to spend all of that money now on the U.S. war industry. You have the Philippines, where U.S. troops are active, and where representatives from the Defense Security Cooperation Agency go to sell U.S. Goods and services from the war industry. You have, Somalia is an active battlefield. Africa Command was established with intense lobby war industry. You have Ukraine, which is sort of a new battleground, and the Ukrainian government has purchased from the U.S. You have Yemen, which has been absolutely destroyed by goods and services routed through Saudi Arabia, the United Arab Emirates, and the U.S. Military. So, you won't have a corporate executive concede, hey, we see the troops as numbers. In fact, their propaganda is very, very good. It's very, very good. They will say things like, oh, they're our troops. And you go to their websites and you'll see, alongside an ad for their, latest gizmo, you'll see, soldier, sailor, airman, marine saluting the flag. You'll say, these are our troops. It's really sinister stuff. But at the end of the day, it's all about profit.
How can people get a hold of you? Go to your website there.
I would go to Clarity Press. It's the publisher. They have a website. I encourage you to order from your local bookstore.
Christian Sorensen, Understanding the War Industry. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
And now a word from our sponsors. If you find yourself in need of legal representation, it can be a very stressful time in your life. In my career, I have dealt with thousands of lawyers, I've dealt with thousands of law firms, and I can confidently recommend to you Keith M. Davidson at kmdlaw.com. Available 24 hours, 7 days a week. Just log into kmdlaw.com. That's kmdlaw.com. Or you can call toll-free 833-4KMD-LAW. That's 833-4KMD-LAW. Personal injury, wrongful death, STDs, sexual assault, car accidents, they handle it all efficiently and professionally. It doesn't matter how imposing the opposition may be, because the team at kmdlaw.com are battle-tested and fierce. They will not stop until justice prevails. Go to kmdlaw.com or call toll-free 833-4KMD-LAW. If you're in for the fight of your life, stop screwing around and contact KMD Law.
Have you ever thought about opening your own mobile cart or kiosk business? Maybe the facility you manage could establish new revenue by adding coffee, food, or retail services. Cart King International can be the answer to your needs. Cart King is a North American designer and manufacturer of the finest mobile coffee, food, and retail carts and kiosks. Cart King has been working with clients and corporations across North America for 20 years, providing innovative designs, custom manufacturing, and timely delivery. Carts and kiosks are fun, and so are the dozens of designs on our website. Please visit us today at www.cart-king.com or just call us at 1-877-986-7771 and get your sales rolling.
PureSoapFlakes.com, 218-568-2525. Have you ever heard of Castile Soap? Pure Soap Flake Company handcrafts fine soap bars, laundry powder, and concentrated soap flakes using organic vegetable oils from their northern Minnesota facility. Bathe your body and wash your clothes with Pure Soap products that are free of fragrance, GMOs, palm oil, sodium lauryl sulfate, and synthetic additives. Keep it clean, folks. Pure Soap Flake Company products are kind to living creatures and sensitive skin, safe for drains and waterways, and work great in high-efficiency washers and top and front-loading machines. They have a little promotion going on. Contact them to order some soap. Mention the Opperman Report. You're going to get a free gift. They're going to sing a little extra soap, travel size, soap bars and laundry soap, cleaning soap flakes. I've been using that stuff all day long today. Great stuff. Order today at puresoapflakes.com or give them a call, 218-568-2525, 218-568-2525. Pure Soap Flake Company is a proud member of the Handcrafted Soap and Cosmetic Guild.
Are you ready to change your life, but don't know how to start? Is your stress and worries keeping you awake at night? Have you been battling grief, anxiety, or depression all alone? Have you lost touch with your own sense of being or spirituality? Soul Free Therapies offers professional and affordable live video streaming counseling and coaching services from the comfort of your own home. Sessions offered in English, Spanish, and Portuguese. Go to our website at www.soul-free.com and book your first session today.
The Opperman Report is brought to you by Aquadam.net. You can give them a call at 707-764-2119. A flooded home is never easy to deal with. You're left with the mess to clean up, the insurance companies to deal with, and not to mention all the memories, the precious memories that are lost in the flood. You can never replace those. And Aquadam can be a tool in your arsenal to protect your home and property from the floodwaters. The cofferdam is filled with water to control water and is reusable as long as it's taken care of. It can protect your home or business from rising floodwaters like a dam, but without the beavers. It can also be used in construction. If you need an area to be dewatered, an Aquadam can do the job. An Aquadam was used at SeaWorld in Orlando for the Mako roller coaster ride during the coaster's construction by dewatering the work area. An Aquadam is now dewatering the work area at San Antonio SeaWorld for their newest roller coaster ride. An Aquadam has been used in many construction projects all around the U.S. and all around the world. Now give Aquadam a call, 707-764-2119. You can look them up online at aquadam.net. You can find them on Facebook at Aquadam Inc. You call them up, you email them, you tell them Ed Opperman sent you, and they're going to take 10% off the price. Aquadam.net, 707-764-2119.